And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. Yeah, Jay thinks it's a good idea too, right? Good. All right, this is a difficult one, yeah. And so this whole like speech has some things like that, right? Like cast into hell and this type of thing. So now we've talked about this a little bit before, but the Jews altered the Scofield Bible. The Jews, the Jews. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of Illuminati thing going on there, but I don't blame the Jews on for really much of anything. There's some Jews that are maybe high elite Jews that are able to influence things like that, but most Jews don't really have a clue. What's up, Seeker? God bless you, my brother. So Val, so this is the thing. So this speech, the Sermon on the Mount, right? There's some controversy here, okay, within Free Grace. Now, obviously, other types of ways of seeing the Bible don't see this book, don't see this speech quite the same way we do. But the classic way the Free Gracers have seen this book, or this speech, sorry, is that Jesus is talking to a bunch of people who don't understand about faith alone salvation. Okay, and I'm gonna give you two understandings of this passage that Free Gracers are debating right now. Okay, so there's two possible ways you can explain this thing. The first way, the more traditional Free Grace way of understanding it, is that Jesus is here talking to a mixed group of people. Some of them are his disciples. Some of them are the multitudes. So they don't really get it. They don't really understand what Jesus is all about, what he's preaching about, and what he's preaching about is faith alone salvation, obviously, right? So they don't get it. So that's why when he talks about stuff like this, when he says, for example, so let's look at this. Seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was said, the disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, so he's teaching his disciples, but the multitudes are also there. He's also teaching them. But he's speaking to his disciples. So that's why when he said this, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, right? These things, these are talking about rewards for the believer who does these things. Okay? If the believer is poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. If the believer mourns, then they shall be comforted. Okay? So it's talking about rewards and other things that we can enjoy in the next life. So that's where we get the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called children of God. So if you're a believer and you go out and make peace, then you'll be rewarded by being called a child of God. Okay? And when you're persecuted for righteousness' sake, yours is the kingdom of heaven, which we also see in other parts of the New Testament. So that's why this makes sense. Like he's speaking to his disciples, speaking about discipleship. Romans 8:17, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. So if you're a child of God, if you're born again, you're a child of God. We are the children of God, right? If children, then heirs. So all the saved people are children of God. So then we're all heirs, heirs of God. But to be joint heirs with Christ, that's a reward. That's something extra. And that to be joint heirs with Christ is only if you suffer with him. Suffer with him. So that's similar to what he's saying here when he says, Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Persecuted for righteousness' sake is the same as what Paul is saying as suffer with him in Romans 8:17, okay? And he also talks about this in 2 Timothy 2:12. If we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. So the idea here is that if we suffer with Christ, we will reign with him. We will be joint heirs with him. Reign with him, joint heirs with him. Okay? But if we deny him, that is, if we deny him to avoid suffering, to avoid the persecution, we say, "Oh no, I don't believe in Jesus." That's denying him, right? If we deny him, then he will deny us. Not deny us to go to heaven, but deny us to the privilege of reigning with him. Okay? We will not reign with him unless we suffer with him. Okay? So that's what he's talking about here. So anyway, my point is just that this is about the rewards for the believers, okay? You're the salt of the earth. The believers are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? Okay? So you are the salt of the earth, but if you don't live as a Christian, then you will lose your savor. And then it's good for nothing but to be cast out, trodden underfoot. Not again, this is not to say you're going to hell, but it's just that if you don't continue to live a good Christian life, now you've been saved, you're born again, you're going to heaven. But now if you don't continue to live a good Christian life, your life is worthless. But if you continue in the faith, grounded and settled, then you'll be presented before him holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight. Colossians 1:23. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on the hill cannot be hid, right? So he's talking still about this, about the disciples. Then when we get to this, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, Christians are not welcome in Israel. Thanks, brother. Yeah, God bless. That helps me understand Acts 5:41. They therefore departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer dishonor for the name. Amen. Yeah, they rejoiced, they rejoiced that they were able to suffer with dishonor. Because when they suffer dishonor, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. So yeah, that's exactly what River Eagle's talking about, Acts 5:41. That's exactly what they're talking about. So he's not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it, right? Until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle from the law will pass away, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of the least of these commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. So see how if you break the commandments and teach men to break the commandments, you'll be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Not that you won't be in the kingdom of heaven, right? You'll still be in the kingdom of heaven, but you'll be called the least. You're not going to be a joint heir with Christ. You're still an heir. You're still an heir of God. You're still a child of God and an heir, but you're not the joint heir with Christ. You're not going to reign with him. Okay? So then when he comes down here, as far as to accept your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. So to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees was, in their mind back then, practically impossible, because these guys were thought of as the most righteous, the most religiously observant. Okay, so then for them to be more righteous than them is almost impossible. That's what he's trying to get across to them, that they can't be righteous like the Pharisees unless they unless they believe in him for everlasting life, and then they'll receive his righteousness, and then they'll be more righteous than the scribes and Pharisees. That's the idea there, okay? This is the traditional free grace understanding of this book, of this speech. So then when he says these things, you've heard that it was said of old time, thou shalt not kill. Whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Hellfire, right? So people forgot about that. But what's he actually saying? See, back then, the Jews, or the Pharisees anyway, they would say, okay, we have to obey the law. And so if the law says thou shalt not kill, so if I don't kill somebody, that means I obey the law. So that's what they thought it meant. And Jesus is saying, no, not only do you have to obey the law and not kill anyone, but you have to actually not even be angry at your brother without a cause, not even say to your brother, thou fool, right? So the idea, the traditional free grace understanding of this passage has been that Jesus is saying to them that, no, it's not just don't kill somebody. You can't even commit any little sin, even a little sin, you won't get into heaven. So that's why, again, they have to believe in him for everlasting life, and then they'll be forgiven of their sins. It's by faith alone, not by works. That's, again, this is what I'm telling you is the traditional free grace understanding, okay? And then he says, this is what it is. Leave their gift before the altar. Agree with that adversary quickly. Thou shalt not commit it. This is another example, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. So the Jews thought, okay, I never commit adultery. That means I never broke the law. But then he says, no, if you even look at a woman with lust in your heart, then you've already committed adultery. So that means pretty much every man has done that, right? So that's why he's saying you can't do it on your own. You must believe in him for everlasting life, or you will not be saved. All right. That's what free graces, again, have traditionally understood this passage to say. And so when you see this one, if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. What he's saying to them, to these people who don't understand about faith alone salvation yet, he's saying to them, look, if you guys think you have to get into heaven by following the law and not sinning, if that's what you think how you're going to get into heaven, well, then you should just cut out your eye, because your eye is constantly sinning, you know? Or if your eye is causing you to sin, then just rip it out. But of course, he doesn't really mean that we should literally rip our eyes out, right? But what he's saying is that you can't do it on your own. You have to believe in him for everlasting life. That's how most free gracers have traditionally explained this passage, okay? Let me just check my comments here and I'll be back. Or actually, let me just finish this. So he says this, okay? So that's how free gracers have traditionally understood this passage. But nowadays, there's another understanding that a lot of free gracers have been warming up to, and I'm kind of thinking about it too. It's very interesting. By this guy, this theologian named Dillow, and his book is called Final Destiny. Okay, it's quite a long book, but it's probably worth a read. I haven't started reading it yet. I've read a bit of it, but anyway, so basically, his idea is not that. His idea is this: Jesus is talking to his disciples. He's strictly talking to save people about how they can get rewards in heaven or to lose rewards in heaven. Okay, and so if you're poor in spirit, then you'll be the king. Then you'll have the kingdom of heaven, which is the same thing I was saying to you before, right? But when he gets down to this part, so all this is the same. But then when he gets to this part, think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. So when he says this, whosoever shall break on the least of these commandments, he's talking to the disciples. They're already saved. And so he's saying, if you guys teach against the commandments, then you'll be the least in the kingdom of heaven. You will be in the kingdom of heaven because you're saved already, but you'll be the least. But if you tell people to do the commandments and teach them, then you'll be great in the kingdom of heaven. So he's telling the disciples about how they can have a good showing at the kingdom of heaven or a bad showing at the kingdom of heaven, right? So then when he says, except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Enter the kingdom of heaven here, according to this view, this Dillo view that I'm telling you about now. Enter the kingdom of heaven is not just to go in and be in heaven, because everyone in his audience is going to be in heaven. But when they say enter the kingdom of heaven, this is like this royal entrance given to the ones who are joint heirs with Christ. They will have the royal entrance. Okay, so they will enter the kingdom similar to the way, like when Caesar and them came back from their battles, when they won a battle, they would come back and they would have this thing called the triumph, and they would have a big parade, and Caesar would come in and on a chariot or something. It would be like this big deal, right? So that's what he's saying by enter the kingdom of heaven in that way. Okay, so if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven in that way, to be honored, to be blessed like that with a big parade, like a royal entrance, if you want that, then you have to, your righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. And in this understanding, it's not they don't think of the scribes and Pharisees as these super holy men, but they're just thinking of them as just, they're people. They keep the law though, and so we should also keep the law. Not keep the law like they do, but teach the law and obey the law, the commandments of God, right? Not the way they do. They add their own laws and all this weird stuff. But we're not going to do that. But in terms of being righteous, we have to be more righteous than that. So then when it says, thou shalt not kill, you've heard it that it was said of old time, thou shalt not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. So this hellfire here, according to Dillo and their thinking on it, this hellfire is not going to hell for eternal torment in hell. Okay, this word hell is Gehenna in Greek. So he's saying you'll be in danger of Gehenna fire. Gehenna, the Greek word Gehenna, it refers to this place outside of Jerusalem, this valley called the Valley of Hinnom. And it was a place that the Jews held, they thought of it as this wicked, evil place because people used to go there and do the child sacrifice and stuff like that. You see that in the Old Testament, like in Jeremiah, I think. I can't remember what chapter right now, but it's in there. So the Gehenna fire is a punishment for believers in this life. Or possibly at the judgment seat of Christ. But it's not about going to hell, okay? If that makes any sense. And so all these discussions here in this chapter, according to the Dillo view that I'm telling you about now, right? Whenever it says hell and stuff, it's talking about cast into hell. You know, your whole body should be cast into hell. This is just this judgment in this life, okay? So those are the two ways that free gracers have traditionally explained this. Or, I mean, the other way I told you before, that's the traditional way. And this way is the more newer way. Okay. So I don't know if that makes any sense or if that's helpful to you at all, but he says more stuff like this. Like even this one, this one where it says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. So free graces have traditionally said that what Jesus is talking about is that these guys here, the ones that are asking to get into heaven, to enter into the kingdom of heaven, they are doing all these works. And so they don't trust in Jesus Christ, they trust in their works. And so that's why he never knew them. And he says, depart from me, right? But now with this Dillo view, what this is actually saying, according to the Dillo view, is that they will not enter. They will not have the royal entrance unless they do the will of the Father, right? And so these guys, they're saying, look, let me do all these works, but they didn't do the works they were supposed to do. And so he professes to them, I never knew you. And some people are suggesting that these people are like these charismatics. Like, charismatics today, they'll say, oh, we prophesied, we cast out devils, we did wonderful works like almost like miracles, right? And so that's the way they understand that. I don't know if that's helpful at all to you, Crafty Val. I hope it is, but we'll move on. Let me see here. Got some comments, so I'm going to read my comments here. Sometimes I wonder, given that the Bible is a complex book, how people who do not understand context get the full truth. It's difficult, but I think God is guiding them. People, if they're really looking for the truth, then God will guide them. When they read that God will deny them if they deny Him, they will probably interpret it as a salvific issue, thinking that they have to do work to be admitted into heaven. Yeah, most people do. Yeah, but again, that's why I don't think people should just pick up a Bible and start trying to make up doctrine or figure it out. I'm not saying don't read it. But if you read something that makes you think you don't understand it, it makes it sounds a little weird, don't try to figure it out for yourself. Try to find somebody maybe who knows a bit more, or research it online or something. I have a question, Mike, on Revelation 2:11. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Why is Jesus saying this to the churches if there are already people there that are saved? Oh, should not be hurt of the second death. It's like when I say, if I say to you, like, this guy's a really, like, if I'm trying to say a guy is bad at soccer, I might say, oh, he's no Ronaldo. So what I'm actually saying, when I say he's no Ronaldo, it sounds like I'm saying he's not as good as Ronaldo. What I'm actually saying is that he's terrible, right? And so that's a figure of speech that we call litotes, and that's what Jesus is saying here. He will not be hurt of the second death, because of course he won't be hurt of the second death. He's gonna be so far away from the second death that it can't even touch him, But that's why that's what they use that kind of figure of speech for, if that helps. It's called litotes. I'll put the name of it here. You can look it up and look for the examples in the Bible. There's many examples of this figure of speech in the Bible, so it's quite common. Hey, God bless Nick. I thought the things that said to churches are to overcome, to endure, and to inherit on judgment seat of Christ. But this was threw me off the other day. Kind of didn't notice it, I guess. Yeah, that's what happens. You don't realize everything, then later on you'll read it again. You see something you never saw before. We know that there could be a connection with word overcometh with 1 John 5:4, except when read this about churches, it doesn't seem to say. Yeah, I don't think it's the same overcoming. This overcometh in Revelation is not the same as 1 John. 1 John is talking about overcometh the world. If you overcometh the world, then you're born of God, right? That's just about positional salvation. In Revelation, Jesus is talking to saved people, the churches. So he's talking about overcoming sin in this life and that there's rewards for it. Lord Shippers might say this could be a good verse to lose salvation if we don't overcome things that are said by Jesus to repent from. Yeah, Lord Shippers try to use those verses. That's true. Hey, hello, Typical. What's up, brother? God bless you, man. Yeah, but then the question is, are we actually doing what we're supposed to do? I would say no, in most part. I'm not sure what you mean by this, but all you need to do is love the brethren and keep the faith of Jesus Christ, okay? And loving the brethren might be complicated. Like, what does that even mean, right? But that's what you learn by studying the Bible, and But we understand what love means generally. Like, it's sacrificing for them, putting their interest before your own, etc. Right? That kind of thing. Seems a bit of a stretch. I'll have to check out Dell's book. Yeah, I know it may be a stretch, but it may not be. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'm warming up to the idea, but then it does seem a bit weird sometimes. You think his view on Matthew 7 is right? Yeah, most people have the biggest problem with the Matthew 7 parts. But if you think about what people usually say about if you look at what free gracers normally say about Matthew 5, it doesn't really make that much sense either, It's kind of like, because first he's saying like, I mean, okay, so according to the normal traditional view of this passage, right? All this stuff is for the disciples, and it's like, you're the light of the world and all this stuff. Think not that I come to destroy the law. So if you break the least of the commandments, it shall teach men so it shall be least of the kingdom. So they're all going to heaven, okay. But then what is this about? Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. And people will say, oh, it means the scribes and Pharisees, they're thought of as these super righteous people. So for the average Jew back then, it was impossible to be that righteous. So that means they need Jesus to be that righteous. Okay, maybe. You've heard that it was said of old time, thou shalt not kill. Whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgments. I don't know. I don't know if either of those explanations are that great. I kind of honestly think I don't really understand this passage anymore. This whole speech. Because I used to think kind of like the way free gracers traditionally thought of it, but if you really look at it closely, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, even this section here. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Doeth the will of my Father. If you think about the context here, will of my Father seems to be obey all these commandments that he kept giving through the whole speech, right? The whole speech has been all these commandments. He's giving them all these commandments. So then when he says, do the will of my Father, it's just like, it's just believe, it sounds a bit weird, right? But if you think about what Dill is saying, it might make more sense. But then, okay, as we continue on here, many will say unto me, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name and done many wonderful works and all this? So the idea for us is that these people are relying on their works, so they won't get in. I really got to settle this thing. I got to keep researching this thing, but it's a little bit weird. Like, have we not prophesied in thy name? So they do seem to be doing the will of the Father. Is that not the will of the Father? I guess people will say the will of the Father is believe in me, right? which you can kind of make that work if you look at other instances of the will of the Father in the book of Matthew. You can kind of make that work. But nobody really goes through the whole speech systematically, checking every verse. That's the problem, I would say. Hey, glad you can make it, bro. Acts 22:16. I hear people use this all the time, trying to say baptism is required for salvation. I'm not sure to explain it from a free grace point of view. All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, that was planned. That was clearly planned. It's just like more of this circus, bro. The relation to the overcoming is not the one from 1 John 5. Why is Jesus using that word in connection to not get hurt by the second death? Because that's what I'm saying. This not get hurt by the second death is just litotes. He's just saying you'll never be touched by the second death. You're going to be a million miles away from the second death. That's what he means by that. That's that figure of speech. Because you look at the other things of overcoming in chapter 2 and 3 there, it doesn't really seem to be. It's not like, it's not like, I guess people will try to say that everyone who's saved gets all those rewards, but it seems like he's offering the specific reward to a specific church if they overcome, right? So they overcome sins in this life, then they get this reward. The only other way you can say if it's like all believers are overcomers, then all believers get all those rewards, right? But it seems like a little bit odd that he would say, okay, this church gets this reward and this church gets this reward. Maybe the mixed audience makes the most sense to me. The mixed audience, right? But then the mixed audience is also tricky too, because it's like, what is he turning to them? It doesn't say that, right? Sometimes you can see it literally says that. He's speaking to the Pharisees, then he turns and he's speaking to his disciples. And you can see that in the speech. But here we don't see that, right? So that's why the mixed audience idea is reasonable, but it's not entire. It's not without problems. Put it that way. It's not that it's not unreasonable. It is reasonable, but it's not without its own issues. I think the will of the Father in Matthew 7 is very different from John 6:40. Yeah, John 6:40 isn't even. That's not even what it's about, man. That's not even what it's about. It says that the will of the Father is that if they believe on the Son, that they will be given everlasting life. Okay. It doesn't say that his will is for us to believe. That's not what it says, right? So people just take that out of context. So believing is not the will of the Father in that passage. It might be believing. I gotta say to you, in Matthew, the word believing, it does seem to say something along those lines. Like if you look at Matthew, for example, Matthew. What's going on here? Oh, sorry. So look at this one. So Jesus is talking to these what do they call them? The chief priests and the scribes, okay? And he's asking them about, well, why didn't you guys listen to John? Or he's saying, because they're asking him, like, where do you get this authority to do these things that you're doing, all these things you're doing? Jesus says, I also will ask you one thing, which if you tell me, I and likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or of men? And they reason with themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, he will say unto us, why did you not then believe him, John? But if we shall say of men, we fear the people, for all hold John as a prophet. And they answered Jesus and said, we cannot tell. And he said unto them, neither tell I you by what authority I do these things. But what think ye? A certain man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not. But afterward he repented and went. And he came to the second and said likewise. And he answered and said, I go, sir. And he went not. Whither of them twain did the will of his father? Which of the two of them did the will of his father? The father. They say unto him, the first. Jesus saith unto them, verily I say to you that the publicans and the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came unto you in the way of righteousness, and you believed him not. But the publicans and the harlots believed him. And ye, when ye had seen it, repented not afterward, that ye might believe him. Believe, right? So this is a parable about the will of the Father, right? Whither of them twain did the will of his father? And the Father represents, in this parable, the Father represents God, right? So the publicans and harlots are going to go into the kingdom of God before the Pharisees, before the chief priests and scribes, because they believed John. They believed. But the Pharisees did not repent afterward that they might believe him. So they will not, they'll go into the publicans and harlots go in before them. But notice again here that it says before them. They go in before you. So it's not that he's not saying that these chief priests and scribes or whoever they are, that they're not going to go in at all. He's just saying that the publicans and harlots go in before them. So this also does fit with the Dillo understanding as well. But anyway, honestly, those things from Revelation seem complicated and nobody actually knows what's going on. We can try to interpret, but nobody is sure 100% that we have right interpretation on what Jesus is saying to those churches. Like, is that us? Or are those some future local churches or what? No, man, no. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is very confusing. It can be, I guess. But look, it's talking to churches in the first century in Turkey. Okay, that's what he's talking to. He's writing letters to them. They are churches. They're saved. That's why I don't think people should consider that to be anything about. It's nothing to do with salvation. It's nothing to do with 1 John 1:5. Or 1 John 5:4 or whatever. It's not that. That's not what it is, man. If you want me to talk about this some more, I will. I think I have some videos about it, but I don't know if that maybe you didn't understand it or something. But I understand the frustration, though. I get it. It's very confusing sometimes. I think there are some things that we better off not understanding at a given time. I'm not saying to stop seeking. Amen. Matthew 7:28 plus 8:1 might give credence to the mixed audience. All right. Let's do that. Oh, because he says, yeah. The people were astonished at his doctrine, right? So the multitudes, right? The multitudes. But it doesn't say, it's interesting it says the people, right? So is it just the multitudes or is it the disciples as well, you know? And it's also like, it's a little bit tricky because for he taught them as one having authority, not as Christ. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. Right. So the multitudes continue to follow them. Yeah, like he does seem to be teaching them as well, right? There's no doubt about that, right? I think Dillo would say that the multitudes are saved as well, I think. Not sure. Yeah, you got to pray for an answer. Yeah, you should pray for wisdom on these things, and slowly you'll come to understand them better, you know?
Okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike Sampat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you want to support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shills. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike Sampat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.